Hello, and welcome to another episode of Real Gear Talks. Today I'll be discussing the main features that make a watch a dive watch. Stay tuned. Now it's time to take a look at some dive watches in the flesh. To better explain the main aspects of dive watches, I'll be examining these 4 levels of dive watches: the fashion watch, the tool watch, the entry-level automatic, and of course, the icon. Now the first most prominent aspect on a dive watch is the unidirectional bezel. Now this is a 60-minute count-up bezel, and you'll see this on mainly all dive watches. And I'll do a quick run through of how this works. You will set the pip here, which is on the 60-minute marker of the bezel, to line up with the minute hand. And then essentially as time passes by, you'll be able to see how much time has been elapsed, up to 60 minutes. The purpose of this is for divers to be able to see how much oxygen has been used up while they're underwater. Now, an important aspect of these bezels is that they're unidirectional, so they will only turn one way, counterclockwise. They will not turn the other way. And the reasoning behind this is that it could only add time to the time you spent underwater, never take away time. So it would never make a diver think that he actually had more oxygen remaining or that he had been underwater for less time than he actually had been. So the next important aspect is of course the water resistance. If you're going to be diving, you need a water-resistant watch. Now, water resistance level starts at 100 meters or 10 ATM, also said 10 bar, and will go into the thousands. Generally speaking, if you're looking to seriously go diving with a watch, it should have at least 200 meters of water resistance, if not more. However, ISO standard 6425 simply defines a dive watch as one that is able to withstand immersion in water to a depth of at least 100 meters. And an important component here of the water resistance is having a watch with a screw-down crown. What this means essentially is that the crown here is threaded into the case, and that it screws down into the crown to form a tighter and better seal, preventing water leaking into the watch. The next aspect is the overall robustness of the watch case, the movement. And you'll see here, just by looking at the cases of the watch, that there's nothing frivolous or unnecessary that could get damaged during a dive or simply through everyday use. All of the cases are fairly utilitarian looking, and you'll see that trend continue through almost all dive watches. The next component of that is the materials. Each of these 4 watches here is made out of stainless steel, and stainless steel is a very popular choice due to its anti-corrosion properties. Titanium is also growing in popularity for dive watches due to its lightweight and durable characteristics. And some dive watches, such as the infamous Xinyu 1, have the submarine grade steel, which of course is even harder than a typical stainless steel. So the next component of the robustness is the bands on the watches. You'll see here on each of these watches that there are different material bands. The leather band here on this Nautica fashion watch, the rubber band here on this Casio Duros, a NATO on the Invicta, and of course the metal bracelets on the Submariner. Now, I've included here the leather because this of course is a fashion watch, and it's not really something you would want to take diving. So that kind of explains why it has a leather strap, and of course you wouldn't want to take a leather strap into the water because that of course would ruin it. Rubber is a very popular choice for serious divers due to the fact that it of course will not be damaged with water. In salt water it can sometimes begin to corrode a little bit, but if you wash the band off afterwards, that should not be a problem at all. And of course due to the fact that you can easily expand it without having to remove links or anything like that to fit over a wetsuit, makes it a very popular choice for serious divers. NATOs are also growing in popularity for a lot of the same reasons of the rubber strap. And then of course we have the bracelet. Now, the bracelet here is obviously made of stainless steel, so it has the same anti-corrosion properties of the stainless steel case. And it is worth pointing out here that there is a feature known as the diver's extension on many serious dive watch bracelets, and that essentially would allow you to be able to fit the watch over a wetsuit without having to take out any links. So that is definitely a good feature to have on a bracelet if you are thinking about going seriously diving with the bracelet on. The next, fourth most important aspect of dive watches are their legibility. Now this of course is very important because underwater it can be difficult to see things, especially a watch face, so you need to really have a very legible and clear face. Now the first component of this is the size. Dive watches are usually on the larger size, especially serious ones. Now this is not to say that there are not great quality, well-built, mid-sized dive watches. This is simply to say that a true dive watch that's really meant to be used for diving mainly is going to have a larger face, simply because it is easier to read underwater, it is easier to grasp and use the bezel, things like that. So the next component of that is the face. You'll see here on all these watches, the Casio is a great example, that the indices are really crisp and clear to see. They usually contrast well against the dial of the watch so that you can really easily and legibly see the time. And that of course is important for underwater use, and of course makes telling the time in any condition a lot faster and a lot easier. The next component of that is luminescence. On all of these watches here, you'll see lume applied in varying degrees. For example, on the Invicta here, you'll see it on all of the indices as well as the minute hand, the hour hand, and on the second hand, as well as on the pip here on the bezel. Lume, again, is a very important feature because obviously underwater is much darker, especially the deeper you go. And also it is simply a nice feature to have on any watch so you can read the time during the night or during the darkness. It's worth pointing out that depending on the watch, there can be different types of lume. On these three watches, it is a variant of Super Luminova. On the Preceramic Submariner, this is of course tritium. And each of these different forms of luminescence have different respective characteristics. So that of course is something important to consider when purchasing a dive watch. Lastly, something that is not here on any of these watches but is worth pointing out is a helium release valve. Now helium release valves, their purpose essentially is to release gases that build up when spending longer periods of time underwater, especially deeper underwater. And you'll see this feature on a lot of serious dive watches. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Additionally, if you enjoyed the video and or found the content useful, I would greatly appreciate a like or subscription. And as always, thanks for watching and stay tuned for new content coming soon. Catch you in the next one.